Welcome to Driving the Cbus, featuring insights from individual contributors from all corners, nooks, and crannies of the Columbus, Ohio region who are making a marked difference in the cultural, business, arts, and quality of life that makes Cbus home. Our goal is to get to the why of our evolving and eclectic environment, which we all share by the people driving the bus. Well, today on Driving the Cbus, I'm pleased to welcome my good friend and colleague Randy Malloy from CD1025. Now, Randy has a very diverse and exciting background. And he's an entrepreneur, as most of you may or may not know, here in Central Ohio. He was attracted to Central Ohio by the Ohio State University after growing up in New Jersey. He sought to come to town here, and his major was telecommunications and marketing. And strangely enough, or not, he has an art minor in neon. So that's, I'm sure, the gas that flows through pipes that looks cool. And so Randy owns the CD1025 independent radio station here in Central Ohio. He started there over 20 years ago as an intern, fell in love with the business and with the music scene in Central Ohio, and frankly took it on as a passion. Now a lot of the local scene is because of Randy and what he's been able to do with local radio. Columbus is blessed to have one of the best independent radio stations in the nation. They are now streaming live at cd1025.com, and they're lighting it up on a national basis. So with that, welcome to the show, Randy. Thanks for joining me.
Good morning, Scott. I don't really think I need to say anything more. You pretty much said it all, so take it away.
Well, we're going to get to all that kind of stuff. So you went to Ohio State. You came here and back in '87, did you say?
Yeah, now you're just dating me. Thanks so much for that.
So it's all going to be out everywhere. It's going to be out. People are going to know.
Yeah, I was born in New York and grew up in New Jersey. When I graduated high school, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I just knew what I didn't want to do when I grew up. So I went to school, got an English degree, and realized that wasn't going to really do much for me because I wasn't going to be a teacher. I then went back to school for 2 years, and I became an ambulance driver. I went and got a certification, and I was an EMTI. So I drove an ambulance for 2 years, and that was super fun, super exciting.
I know how you drive too, so that was
it was perfect.
You have an extra gurney for
it fit very well with my driving skills. So but I then realized that it's not what I wanted to do forever, and so I said, I'm going to go back to school, and I decided to try Ohio State University. I had visited out here in Ohio a couple times. I had a girlfriend at the time that went to OU, so I had flown out a couple times here and applied, got accepted, and stayed. Just graduated school and stayed in good old Central Ohio. I found it to be even back then, I found it to be a very welcoming and open community that I could see a lot of potential for it. It literally back even in 1990, I could see the potential for Columbus, that it was this city on the verge of exploding. The growth was already happening. There was a lot of people that were coming into the market that it was a different vibe than where I grew up, where it was just so congested and so packed and all the ideas had been thought of. This was very inclusive to ideas and collaboration. So I just kind of said, I'm going to stay here and see what becomes of it.
That's great. Well, when did you actually get hooked up with the station, with CD1025?
And the radio station went on air for the first time in August 21st of 1990. I pretty much heard it from the beginning. I was still in school, and I got involved with the radio station for an event we did through the university, and I was with the Ohio State University Ski Club. They showed a Warren Miller film that the station presented and the ski club sponsored, and I asked, do you guys have any internships? And they said, well, we're just getting to that. I said, great, I'd like to apply. So I was the first intern.
Wow, how about that?
And it was sort of, so I get to hang out with rock stars and I get to go all this great stuff. Okay, I can do this. And then a few months later, they said, do you want a job? I said, so you're going to pay me to hang out with rock stars and do all this cool stuff? I said, sure. And I just progressed from there. I used the skills I'd learned, from previous life, sort of life lessons. My dad I had business cards when I was in junior high to cut grass and shovel snow in the winter, to leave a business card, Randy Malloy, dependable high school student. So I was always self-promoting. So it just sort of, fit into that role. So the marketing was easy for me. So I was a good guerrilla marketer for the radio station. It was in its infancy, only 1 year old. And then it just, I went to progress through that, became the director of marketing, director of operations, general manager. And then when the station transitioned from the old signal of 101.1 FM to 102.5, the old owner, selling the tower and license to the Ohio State University, I purchased the intellectual property and moved 102.5 into what we have today.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. The hair on my neck just stood up because in the studio today we also have one of your interns that has now joined the team, and that's Daisy Gibson.
Hi.
So Daisy, welcome to the podcast as well. And so we have the CD 102.5's very first intern sitting here with its probably 50th intern.
Oh no.
Maybe more than that?
We go through about 50 a year.
50 a year. My
year.
Lord. That's a lot.
Yes.
That's a lot.
Yes.
And but you were an intern as well. Is that right?
I was an intern for about a year.
Okay. And now what's your position with the company?
I am an account executive, so I work in sales.
Okay. Good deal.
Been here this is my 5th day, so
that's great.
Pretty new.
That's right. And your email address, so everybody wants to buy spots on CD 102.5 is?
Daisy at cd1025.com.
There you go.
There you go.
And her last name's Gibson, so that works with the whole guitar thing and rock, and it's so it just works. You're going to be successful already. I predict it.
It was meant to happen.
That's right.
That's what I said. She's got the rock last name, so can't go wrong.
That's the only reason he really hired me. He was like, well, her last name's guitar, so she's hired.
Perfect. Well, the Lord works in mysterious ways, so that's, we all know that. So shifting back to the radio and independent radio itself. So the station has been around. It's really produced, it has been the catalyst behind the local rock scene in Central Ohio, I would think. But tell me about how independent radio is different from the other radio. So what's the story? Independent radio. What gives?
Well, I appreciate that kind sentiment, but I don't look at ourselves as we've created the scene. Part of it, sure, helping be influential, sure, but I think it creates itself. Independent radio versus corporate radio, I guess, is sort of what you're asking in a polite way. As you are an independent bank compared to the large Wall Street banks. We are the same thing. We are a independent radio station compared to literally Wall Street radio. It's sort of the difference between, if you look at the large concert promoters in the world, you've got AEG and Live Nation. They're the Coke and Pepsi of promotion when it comes to concert promoting. We're some off-brand cola. That's us. We're the off-brand cola that people still love, and they have that loyalty and affinity for because, hey, I'm a free thinker. I want to think that way. Companies that are like Town Square or CBS or Encom or everyone knows iHeart, just applied for bankruptcy as well as a lot of these other did. They have legacy debt in the billions of dollars because their product as a manufactured product is radio station music, but the passion's not there anymore. It's just a product to them. It's a service, and they leverage that on Wall Street to make money for investors.
Well, thinking about passion though, I'm not leaving this independent radio thing.
No, I'm coming back to that.
Well, the whole deal here is this: how many times have you guys played a famous artist song for the first time in this market? How many times has that happened?
Oh, a lot.
Yeah, like who?
We've broken
Just give me
bands.
a few examples.
Fits in the Tantrums, Walk the Moon. I'll tell a very quick story. It used to be that I said, bands had to start somewhere. They were a local band once somewhere. Pearl Jam, Nirvana were always a great example. Because, think about it. Them, Soundgarden. They all started in Seattle, that Seattle grunge. But somebody had to play them on the radio before they were anything. A few years ago, at the radio station, we have a music meeting on Thursdays. And people come to it. Bands do, record reps, staff, and we listen to the new music that we potentially put on the air. So one Thursday, there's a kid sitting at the bar downstairs, and we said, "Hey, how you doing? I'm gonna get you water, coffee, anything."
The bar wasn't. The bar is inside the studio, just so everybody knows. So come visit.
Well, we tour people, yeah.
That's right.
We do tours. A couple weeks later, same kid sitting at the bar. I'm like, "Oh, hey, you need here for the music meeting again? Yeah, cool. Oh, what's your name, man? Nice to meet you. Oh, I'm Kevin. Great." A couple weeks later, here's this Kevin kid again. I'm like, "Kevin, right? What are you doing, man? Good to see you." So, what were you in a band or something? Yeah, I'm in a band called Walk the Moon. They weren't signed yet. They didn't have a record label. They just were fans of the station, musicians, and they really, really wanted to be on the radio. They called all the time to be in the top 5 at 5. Kevin Ray and his dad.
Yeah.
To be in the top 5 at 5. Well, Walk the Moon now tours internationally. They sell out 20,000 person venues.
Right.
But they had to start somewhere.
Right.
And he's told this exact same story countless times that we've done interviews with him and other stations that somebody just had to give him a chance.
Right. Well, I'm so glad for that. Thanks for making my point, though. You were very humble in answering my first question and said, "Well, we really weren't responsible for that." Well, Randy, I think you were. That's why you're sitting here today. That's why I think people like you drive the bus. And people in Columbus are generally that humble as well, though. I mean, that's where it's not all about who gets the credit here in town. We're making a melting pot together, and we have so many people doing that. But I think a lot of times people have to know these stories because there's been iconic things happen in Central Ohio that a lot of folks don't know about, and that story was awesome. That's the kind of the catalyst of what I'm talking about as far as the leading edge that you and CD 1025 have been able to lead for the city.
Well, sort of going back to what you said about independent radio, we didn't set out when we started this journey to become tastemakers. We were just playing good music. But as sort of the world evolved, that's what we had to do. We got pushed into this niche that we had to be tastemakers, that we had to create and find new artists to share with the audience because we would get pushed out otherwise because of whatever else technologies there are. People can find other ways to listen to music, but how do you find good music? How do you find new music? Because unless you have more time than a hyperactive 16-year-old, there's so much new music out there. How do you find the good stuff that you may like or not like? There's a lot of services that will point you in that direction, but unfortunately, a lot of times they're sponsored services. If that's not got 500,000 downloads or it isn't some hugely popular band, you may not find out about it. And how do bands get broken like they used to? And that's what the independent radio station is allotted. We can do that. I don't have someone in New York or LA or Atlanta telling me, you can't add this band. They're not a hit. They don't have 500,000 downloads. They don't sell out venues. We can find this diamond in the rough and say, hey, these guys are great. Let's play them.
Let's make it happen.
Exactly. And if it works, it does. If it doesn't, well, there's still someone next. But again, someone has to give these bands that opportunity to do that. Funny story is that we have an intern named Henry, high school kid from Columbus Alternative. He's in a band called Rat Attack. He's selling out 200-person venues in high school. His bandmates are all in high school. His mom drives them in a minivan to the shows.
Yeah.
He's probably going to get a record deal. We've had a couple of AR executives who've shown up at some of his shows already because they're just high school kids with raw talent. But they literally can't drive themselves to the venue yet because they're all 16 and 17-year-old kids. But we're playing them on the radio station because we believe that, wow, these guys have a great sound, and we want to support the local musicians as well because someone has to give them a chance. If you don't give them a chance, someone gave me a chance, close to 30 years ago, as an intern that said, hey, I'm this crazy kid from New Jersey.
Right. That's right.
I want to work at the radio station. Someone said, sure, give him a shot.
Right.
And, I did my best to make something of that. So I guess I've always thought that paying it forward to do that is important. And we're doing it with bands, and we do it with someone like Daisy sitting here today with us.
Well, it's also backed up with lots of long hours and hard work and dedication and all that.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You got to have all of that. I mean, for anybody to give you a shot, you got to ride the bus, right?
Yeah, I will say that it does require that there are some extra hours. I was in the office yesterday at 8 a.m. and I left at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
So, and that's not typical.
No, it's not. We're going to get into entrepreneur and all that kind of stuff here in just a little bit. Daisy, what made you, after you were here for the first year as an intern or your period of time, what made you want to decide to join the team at CD 1025?
Well, I've known about CD 1025 pretty much my whole life, and I've always loved the station. I've always loved the music they played, and I really just listening to music, sharing music with other people is my passion. I love doing it. It's my favorite thing to do. So when I got on the scene team, I was really excited, and I ended up staying for a year and really just loved everyone at the station. I loved working there. It did not let me down at all. Once I got the internship, I was not disappointed. And then when the job opening came up, I was like, oh, awesome. Randy said, oh, you're going to basically pay me to work here. So, and I was like, yeah, I'll definitely jump on that. That sounds great. So I just kind of went up to Randy and I was like, hey, Randy, see there's a sales opening. I want that job. And he's like, okay, send me your resume. And I was like, all right. So yeah, that's kind of why I kind of wanted to stay. I just loved it.
Yeah, well, great. The nice thing about it is, too, it's not a job, it's an adventure.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's truly an adventure. So if you truly like what you do and everything else, it's not a job, it's an adventure.
No, yeah,
and the hours fly by, and it's not about, you're never watching the clock, it's always about what I get to do next, and it's so exciting if you keep that fire, home fires burning in your heart for what you do. It just really it changes the demographic completely.
Yeah, it's awesome. Great perks, too. Free concerts.
That's right.
Wonderful.
That's right. Well, great segue. I wanted to start talking a little bit about the local scene of music here in Central Ohio. So, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I don't think it's ever been better than it is today. We have now our growing music venues. I know that I'm financing some of them. I know that that you guys are placing bands there, and it's all different kinds of music. Just generally, what do you think about the music scene in Central Ohio?
Well, I definitely think that Columbus and the Central Ohio music scene is expanding and growing. It's always been there, but it hasn't been cohesive. And right now we're looking at a potential seed change in that there is the potential for a music commission to be built here to help drive commerce and real music growth when it comes to bands being developed here, bands being able to live and work here, the promotion of venues, of just a belief in that. So almost like the Greater Columbus Arts Council, we'd actually have a music commission like Austin that does South by Southwest.
Or the Sports Commission or
exactly.
whatever. Yeah.
And that's being really looked at by some leaders. You've got some forward thinkers like Tom Krause from Donato's. You've got Tom Katzenmeyer, the president of the Greater Columbus Arts Council. You've got Alec Whiteman, who used to be the president of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. There's a lot of people looking at creating this. It's pretty much there now. They're doing a hunt for a director right now. And that really, I believe, is going to help be a cohesive factor to help artists that are from here, musicians that are from here, artists that may want to move here from other places, from Brooklyn, from Nashville, which are becoming hotbeds of musicians, to find ways that this can become positive commerce, where we can have a lot more influence over the overall national music scene from good old humble Columbus, Ohio.
That's right. That's awesome. I find that there's not a lack. I mean, almost every at least 3 or 4 nights a week, there's multiple places around town to go and catch great bands, individual performers. Of everything from classical music, opera. We have strong opera here in Columbus, to traditional music. You've got people like Mr. Logston that's here in town, and I mean all those guys that are on the Buckeye Cruise for Cancer.
Yep.
On the Buckeye Cruise for Cancer, they actually take a whole boat. I don't know if you knew this or not. They take a whole boat, and all the entertainment on that boat is from Columbus.
Yep.
So when you go, you hear all these different folks. It's incredible, but it's just a super rich scene. We've got the Capitol, the Capitol University has a super strong music program. Obviously, Ohio State does as well. So there's lots and lots of local talent to make that happen.
You can find live music pretty much every night in this city at multiple venues. And right, it does encompass every format. I mean, the radio station has a venue. You've got a venue down the street in Copious. You've got Promo West that has multiple venues, from the Newport Music Hall to the basement to A&R. You've got Natalie's, down in Clintonville area. Then you've got people like Zach Rubin with Prime Social Group, who puts on the Breakaway Festival for
Aces of Cups.
Right, for EDM fans. Then you've got Aces of Cups. This weekend alone, we have Rock on the Range, which brings $100 million into the market with 3 days of bands playing at Mafre Stadium.
Right.
You've got Kappa. It really is an extremely vibrant music scene in the city, and I think that a lot of people don't realize how music intensive and how music rich the scene of Columbus is, because you literally can see live music any day that you want, and you can probably find any genre you want any day.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think it's just getting more and more diverse and accessible. Now it's starting with the commission. I think the Arts Commission would be a great idea. Organizing those efforts, so they can all be amplified, exponentially. So I think that's awesome. Well, let's shift gears here and talk a little bit about our city. I mean, what we've talked about. We've been here since the '80s. Of course, I've been here since the '60s. We've seen the city has transformed from a cow town to one of the most vibrant MSAs in the United States, but it hasn't been by accident. We've had some really great folks that have helped the city come along. Tell me what your thoughts are about kind of where it was when you got here originally back in the '80s, and where you think it is today, and maybe where we might be going.
Well, interestingly enough, I think that when I first got here, the biggest industry was the university. It was a city.
Battelle, maybe Battelle,
right. Right, but that's that's a different level. Battelle is this sort of secret science world that people don't know about. But it was a city built around the university. There was not a lot of downtown living. There wasn't a lot of downtown excitement. The Short North was not exactly what you would call hospitable. It was the dark side of the moon down there.
That's where the kind of ratty bars and strip joints were in the Short North.
It was.
Yeah.
Which was,
not that I ever went in any of those strip joints.
Literally, in between the high rises of downtown, and the university was a very, very unsavory part of the city. Oh. But the Columbus feel was there. There was a lot of leaders that were positive and forward-thinking that there's more to Columbus. The potential I saw for Columbus was that it was very white-collar. There was a lot of CEO headquartered things here from, Borden Foods and Marzetti and Winnie's International and White Castle and, so there was a lot of things that were already here that made that growth possible. And I think with a lot of smart, forward-thinking people, they pushed sort of the envelope to grow. What we are now is the 13th largest city in the country.
Yeah, we just surpassed San Francisco.
Yeah, so that's, which you would think that's kind of crazy, but when you look at the size of it, we're a pretty good sized city. Yeah,
just try to drive someplace. 7:30 or 4:30.
We actually get traffic now, and still though, I'm sorry, I as a guy that comes from the East Coast,
nothing like Jersey, man.
The traffic thing isn't really a problem for me. I complain about it too, but I'm like, I'll get there in 12 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. You can still drive anywhere in the county in like 25 minutes, or 30 minutes during lunch hour. So.
But yes, the growth I think has been exponential, and it's been due to some smart, forward-thinking people. And you have to give credit to people like Les Wexner, who put his mark on the city and helped grow that. And you've got to put it onto the political scene because where else can you see where you have Democrats and Republicans actually crossing the divide and working together? Where, we put a tax, a sales tax on things and said, we're going to use it for improvements, and actually did. Actually used that tax incentive for improvements. It wasn't like, oh, well, we got the tax, let's now fight about it later. No, we said we're going to do that, and they did it.
Right.
So that says a lot about the inclusiveness of a political regime and the private sector regime actually working together. So if we can do it in Columbus, well, that's why we're a test market, and that's why we're so important to the rest of the world when it comes to, presidential elections and everything else, because we seem to have this anomaly of people that actually can get things done.
Right. Daisy, now where are you from initially?
I'm initially from Columbus, but
Okay.
I actually grew up overseas.
Okay.
Over in Taiwan for a lot of my life, and then I came back to Columbus for college.
Okay.
So I go to Capital.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's where my son went. My son went to
yeah.
Capital. He majored in golf. And he's going to be a professional golfer, so it's cool. He's putting it to work. But tell me, just in your short time back, so you were here and then you went away and then you came back. What made you, obviously you're going to start your career here and you're joining Randy's squad. What makes you think, what's your opinion of the city and where it's come?
I love Columbus. I think it's a great city. I think it has that it's growing, and I've always lived in cities. So I've always liked cities. Columbus I feel like has a very it has a Midwestern feel, but it's not I feel like when you think overall Midwestern, it's a lot of corn and just outside in other parts of Ohio and stuff. But Columbus has that Midwestern feel. I feel like people in Columbus are pretty genuine and friendly, and I really like that. I really like that Columbus is so community oriented. I feel like the people in Columbus really care about local community, local businesses, which I think is great.
Local radio.
Yeah, and CD 102.5.
Yeah.
It's big reason I wanted to work at CD 102.5. So I came back to Columbus. The only real downside to living in Columbus for me is the weather. We're in Taiwan. I lived in Taiwan and it was so warm. And here it's not so warm during the
Depends on the year, Just ask
it
Al Gore.
does. It does.
Come on. The whole ice pack was melting here a few years ago, and woe is me. No, the whole deal is this. Columbus is the tropics of the Midwest, right? So you just have to, you really just have to wait, and the weather will change. I've played golf on January 1st. I can't tell you how many times, and but of course I've seen snow in May, so it just it just depends, So. I guess the variety of our weather is a lot like our residents and a lot like our music scene and everything else, right? So we have the plentiful.
Fair enough.
We get all the seasons, and sometimes we get them in the wrong season. But
pretty much.
Who knows? So I hear the whole weather thing. I get you there. Well, that's cool. How about entrepreneurialism is something that's very, very important to me, and I know it is to Randy as well, and to all the people that join Randy's team, because it's kind of an all-hands-on-deck philosophy, right? So you were talking before about, and Columbus is super rich with entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Big time. That's why we're a test market. Some of the biggest companies in the nation have come from here. We have one of the largest nonprofit research institutes on the planet. Actually, it's the largest on the planet in Battelle here, and people don't really know the gem that we have here. You were beside Moscow and Washington. Unfortunately, we're number 3 on the nuke list.
I was going to say, I think we're still on the first strike list.
That's right, exactly.
Because of Battelle.
So congratulations, Columbus. You're on the first strike list.
Yes.
So strength through peace. Or peace through strength.
Peace through strength. Strength.
But tell me a little bit about the you were able to take as a young person, you were able to get involved with the station, and your entrepreneurial attitude and stance has really molded that station to what it is today, and the Columbus's music scene. So how important is that to you, Randy, as an entrepreneur? Of inclusiveness with your team, and then being in an environment that actually rewards that kind of behavior?
Well, I just was a moderator at Columbus Startup Week, and it's packed with people. And I don't think there's ever been, to me, it doesn't seem like there's ever been a better time to be an entrepreneur, because people are looking for that that spark in other people. They want to find that idea, that next great thing, and a lot of other people are willing to invest in that. People like yourself, people like, from Rev 1, and people are literally looking to find that next big thing and are willing to invest in that. And that passion has to be there, though. People have to believe in themselves. And it's funny because, I try never to be an arrogant person. But I have to believe in myself that, I know what I'm doing. And if I don't, well, I'll ask for directions along the way, as I'm literally driving at breakneck speed. So if that map flies out the window, well, just somebody else better be looking going, I think that's the right way. Well, we're still on the road, so we're going the right direction. You have to have that. You have to have that belief in yourself. Someone told me once, if you bet on yourself, you never lose. Well, that's kind of how I think entrepreneurs live. You have to take that sort of breakneck speed, and if the map goes out the window, well, okay, keep going. We're on the road, aren't we?
Right.
Or not.
Well, it's like a play you've never seen before.
Correct.
Right? So nobody really knows that you lost the map. The map didn't fly out the window.
Right.
I once had a real quick story. I had a gentleman that was an entrepreneur here in Central Ohio named Jack Eggspuler. He was one of the vice. Well, he's the vice chair of Heartland Bank with my father for 24 years. He ran Don Scott Field, had restaurants, all of his own stuff, serial entrepreneur, and he was an expert airplane crash witness. So they would go up and reenact airplane crashes to defend, which is not a very safe job.
I was going to say.
But this is what he did, and he was very good at it, right?
I think they use dummies in cars for that now.
They do. Let's go back to the video. Yeah. So anyway, we were sitting in a hangar in Southwest Florida when I was starting my business, and I was about 2.5 years into it, and you just constantly as an entrepreneur are beating your head against the wall, solving problems. That's what you do. If it was easy, everybody would do it, right? And so I asked Jack, I said, Jack, when do you truly know what you're doing as an entrepreneur? And he looked around, he looked over one shoulder to another and made sure nobody was listening. And he said, Scott, nobody really knows what the hell they're doing. They really don't know. It's through trial and error. It's through solving problems on a daily basis. It's through building your network of trusted advisors and getting up every day with the passion to do it again. That's what it's all about. And I thought, wow, that's just, sage advice. And so I've always kind of kept that, held that dear, and that's what drives me on a daily basis. That, people just, they don't know, you truly don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So you got to be prepared every day to handle whatever comes your way.
Something similar to that mantra was something that we've had at the radio station for many, many years that may have dated back to an engineer who consulted with us named Chip Morgan. And it's just a suggestion. So we still have that today. It's like, wow, that didn't work. It was just a suggestion. So, yeah, that's exactly what it is. You have to think that way, that, look, if it didn't work this way, well, let's try it a different way. And, if this way worked, great. So, I always try and analyze things, cheaper, faster, smarter. So how do you do it? Cheaper, faster, smarter, and not in any specific order. Because just because we've been doing something the same way for the past 20 years, and you come to me, have you tried this? No, it costs more money. Have you tried this? No, that takes 3 extra people. Have you tried this? No, that's too dangerous. Have you tried this? You may ask me that 77 times, and I'm the, the Pope of nope. No. But that 78th time, you come to me and say, what about trying it this way? Oh, I've never thought of that. Well, guess what? If that is now cheaper, faster, smarter, that's the way we'll do it from that point on. And that was an 18-year-old that just told me,
right,
do it that way. And that's now the new way that the radio station does it. So you have to have that mind open. You have to look at the resources you have and the people you have. And you have to have that mentality of, it's just a suggestion, because the roadmap isn't written. You're doing it as you go.
Well, it's just the same, say, Edison principle, right? So
yes,
it's not that he didn't fail 10,000 times. He found 10,000 ways not to make a light bulb. Right. So same kind of deal. Exactly. All right. Hey, what question would you have of me as shows at the podcast hosts as the podcast host? What question would you have of me today?
Well, probably what I would want to know is, as someone who does invest in entrepreneurs, in new projects, where do you see the direction of the overall entrepreneurial world in this city headed?
Oh, it's headed to a really good place. I mean, we have so much bright talent now that sees Columbus as a place where they can live. Before, I remember when I went to school, I guess we're perpetually going to school, but when I was in college and after college, all I ever heard from my friends were that I can't wait to get out of Columbus. I can't wait to go to Chicago or New York or LA or Phoenix or one of these other great places, that have all this to go.
The brain drain.
You don't hear that now. Now you hear, wow, Columbus is pretty cool. We've got all the amenities we want, things of that nature, and so I think we have that going for us. We actually have a place now that's cool, and it's conducive to families, conducive to all the different generations and stages in life that people want. Not just a cow town where you get 2 kids in a suburban house and picket fence and that kind of thing. You can do multiple things here in this city and have different stages of life in this city and still have great Midwestern people that have values and are nice to you or give you directions and that kind of thing. We have a low crime rate, so the city's on fire. As far as where I go, I think about when I invest in entrepreneurs, I invest in passionate entrepreneurs that are not overly blind to their passion. So some people get so blind to the passion that they will not listen to anyone else that's given them the idea or another way to do something or what have you. So we at Heartland, we try to seek those entrepreneurs that want a relationship with an institution that's going to give them the advice that they need, but they got to have their own passion. They just can't have blind passion. And so I think the future, to answer your question directly, in Ohio and specifically in Central Ohio for entrepreneurs probably has never been better. It's probably going to get a lot better because of the amount of equity and attention on the creativity of the entrepreneurship here in Central Ohio. So I'm totally bullish on it. What kind of last thoughts do we have?
Well, I wanted to say congratulations to you and your team on receiving the Governor's Award.
Oh, thank you.
That's a very prestigious award. We actually got that some years ago. Not an easy thing to get, so congratulations. That's very impressive.
I didn't realize how big of a deal that was
It's a big
until
deal.
I showed up, and I'm like, wow, there's 800 people here.
Right, that's a
my
very
gosh,
big deal.
This person has a scripted message to accept their thing, and so I was starting to sweat bullets there a little bit.
No, you were very appropriate. You did a great job.
Thanks.
Your speech was great, and I think that is a very well-deserved award for you and your team.
Good deal. Well, I appreciate that. Well, I just want to thank both of you for coming in. Congratulations, Daisy, on the next chapter of life. You've hooked up with a great company.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
Independent radio is going to be here to stay, and the founder here and one of the icons of Columbus music, Randy Malloy, is going to make sure of that. I guarantee you. So with that, I want to thank Randy, you, and CD 1025 for everything that you guys do to create the music scene in here and to promote entrepreneurialism and independent radio, both not only locally but across the nation. And thanks for driving the bus.
Thank you so much, Scott.